The foreign girl burst through the church doors like her life depended on it. Her dirty cream dress caught on the handles, but she didn't even slow down. She ran straight past the rows of dangerous men in dark suits, their hands moving toward hidden weapons. Her afro bounced wildly as her feet pounded against the cold stone floor. Every head turned, every face showed shock. But she only had eyes for one person. Park Si-woo stood at the altar, his tattooed hands reaching for the wedding rings. The most feared man in Seoul, a man whose name made grown criminals look away. She grabbed his wrist and pulled. Hard. "We need to go," she gasped. "Right now." The bride in her perfect white dress stepped back, her bouquet of roses trembling. The guests rose from their seats. Si-woo's bodyguards moved forward, guns appearing from nowhere, but Si-woo didn't pull away. He stared at this terrified girl with dirt on her face and desperation in her eyes. Something in that look made him move. "Trust me," Elena whispered. "Please." He did. And that split-second decision saved his life. They ran together down the aisle, past the shocked faces, past his own men shouting orders. She dragged him through the heavy doors and into the courtyard. His heart pounded. His mind raced with 1,000 questions. Who was this girl? Why was he following her? Had he just made the biggest mistake of his life? Then it happened. 5 seconds. That's all the time it took. The explosion tore through the church like thunder from hell. The beautiful stone cathedral erupted in flames exactly where Si-woo had been standing. Glass shattered. Stone crumbled. Screams filled the air. Heat blasted their backs as they stumbled forward onto the cobblestones. Si-woo spun around, his trained instincts taking over. Through the smoke and chaos, he could see bodies scattered inside. His men, his guests, and standing in the center of it all, untouched by the blast, was his bride. Kim Yuna stood at the altar, with her veil lifted, watching the destruction with cold, calculated eyes. "She planted the bomb," Elena said between gasps for air. "Your bride. I heard her planning it. I work nights cleaning at the art gallery downtown, and she was there with these men, and they were talking about the wedding and how you'd never see it coming, and I couldn't just let you die, so I ran here, and you saved me," Si-woo interrupted, his voice barely a whisper. His own men poured from the burning church, guns drawn, faces blackened with soot. They surrounded Elena in seconds, their weapons pointed at her head. "Boss, she led you into this. This is a trap." But Si-woo looked back at the altar, at the woman he was about to marry, the woman who had just tried to kill him, the woman who stood there now. Realizing her plan had failed, he stepped between his men and Elena. "Lower your weapons," he commanded. "This girl just risked everything to save a stranger, while the woman I trusted most just tried to murder me at our own wedding." The city of Seoul had no idea that everything was about to change. The underworld would shake, empires would fall, and it all started because one foreign student decided that some lives were worth saving, even if it meant running into hell itself. Welcome to Afro Seoul's storybook. And darling, you just crossed a threshold you can't uncross. This isn't some fairy tale romance where the prince saves the princess. This is blood and power wrapped in Armani suits. This is a legacy stolen and a woman ready to burn the world to take it back. Subscribe to watch more of our daily stories. And comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far this storm is spreading, and hit that like button. Park Si-woo learned about death when he was 7 years old. His father had been a mid-level enforcer for the Chonsu syndicate, the kind of man who collected debts and broke fingers when payments came late. One winter morning, they found his body floating in the Han River with 3 bullets in his chest. No investigation, no justice, just a cardboard box of his belongings and a mother who cried herself to sleep every night for a year. Si-woo swore he would never be that powerless again. By 16, he was running protection rackets in Gangnam. By 20, he'd taken over the entire southern district through a combination of strategic brutality and calculated mercy. He killed when he had to. He spared when it served him. And he built an empire on the simple principle that fear and respect were 2 sides of the same coin. Now, at 32, Park Si-woo controlled half of Seoul's underground economy. Gambling, construction, nightclubs, shipping if money moved through the city. Si-woo took his cut. His penthouse overlooked the Han River, the same water that had claimed his father. Every morning he stood at those floor-to-ceiling windows and reminded himself that he had won. But winning came with a price. The Bukshan syndicate controlled the northern territories, and their leader, Kim Tae-jin, had ambitions that stretched far beyond his current borders. For 3 years, Si-woo and Tae-jin had danced around each other like wolves circling the same prey. Small skirmishes, territorial disputes, bodies found in alleys with messages carved into their skin. The violence was escalating, and both men knew it couldn't continue forever. That's when Tae-jin proposed the marriage. His daughter, Kim Yuna, was 28 and educated in Switzerland. She spoke 4 languages, held a degree in international business, and had never once gotten her hands dirty with the family business. She was perfect, respectable, the kind of woman who could stand beside Si-woo at charity galas and make the world forget what he really was. The marriage would unite the syndicates, create peace, open new opportunities for both families to expand into legitimate businesses. Politicians would take their calls. Banks would approve their loans. They could finally step out of the shadows. Si-woo agreed because it made strategic sense. Not because he loved her. Not because he even particularly liked her. But because power without legitimacy was just another kind of prison, and he was tired of being trapped. He met with Yuna 3 times before the wedding. Formal dinners at expensive restaurants where they discussed logistics like business partners negotiating a merger. She was beautiful in that cold, precise way that reminded him of expensive art, something you admired but never touched. She never laughed at his jokes, never asked about his past, never showed the slightest hint of genuine emotion. "This arrangement benefits us both," she said during their final meeting, sipping wine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "I gain independence from my father's oversight. You gain legitimacy and access to our international connections. We don't need to pretend it's anything more than that." Si-woo appreciated her honesty. He'd spent his entire life surrounded by people who smiled while planning to stab him in the back. At least Yuna was upfront about the transaction. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the Cathedral of St. Mary, a sprawling stone church in the heart of Seoul. Neutral territory, 200 guests from both families, all of them carrying concealed weapons beneath their formal attire. The ceremony would be live-streamed to various faction leaders across the city, a public declaration that the war was over. Si-woo's lieutenant, Han Jae-sung, had been with him since the beginning. They'd fought together, bled together, built the empire together. Jae-sung was the only person Si-woo trusted completely, which was why he put him in charge of wedding security. "Every entrance is covered," Jae-sung assured him the night before. "Metal detectors, hand searches. We've got snipers on the surrounding buildings and a dozen men inside the church. Nothing gets through. You'll be completely safe." Si-woo nodded, but safety felt like a foreign concept. He hadn't felt safe since he was 6 years old. The morning of the wedding, he stood in his penthouse and stared at the suit hanging on his closet door. Navy blue, custom-tailored, with a white floral boutonniere that Yuna's mother had insisted upon. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, at the tattoos crawling up his neck, at the scars hidden beneath expensive fabric, at the eyes that had seen too much death to ever look innocent again. "This is the right move," he told himself. "This is how you survive." But survival had never felt so much like surrender. Elena Moore had come to Seoul with dreams that felt foolish now in hindsight. She'd won a full scholarship to study international relations at Yonsei University, one of the top programs in Asia. Her mother had cried tears of joy when the acceptance letter arrived. Her little sister had made her promise to send pictures of everything. Her father had driven her to the airport and whispered, "Make us proud, baby girl." That was 18 months ago. The reality of being a foreign black woman in South Korea was nothing like the brochures suggested. People stared everywhere she went, some with curiosity, some with hostility, most with a blank incomprehension that made her feel like an alien. Shopkeepers followed her around stores. Taxi drivers refused to pick her up. Her Korean language skills were decent, but her accent marked her as an outsider in every conversation. The scholarship covered tuition, but Seoul was expensive. Impossibly expensive. Her stipend barely covered rent for a tiny room in a boarding house, which meant she needed work. But work permits were complicated, and most places wouldn't hire a foreign student. She'd applied to 30 positions before she found one willing to take her a late-night cleaning job at the Hansung Gallery in Gangnam. The work was hard and the hours were brutal. She'd finish her classes at 6, grab a quick meal of convenience store kimbap, then head to the gallery by 9. She'd clean until 3 in the morning, mopping floors, dusting sculptures, wiping down the endless glass display cases. Then she'd take the last subway home, sleep for 4 hours, and do it all again. But the money was decent, and more importantly, she was usually alone. The gallery closed to the public at 8, and the security guard mostly stayed in his booth by the front entrance. Elena could work in peace, listening to music, practicing her Korean vocabulary words while she scrubbed toilets. It was a Thursday night, 3 days before the wedding, when everything changed. She was on the second floor, cleaning the contemporary art wing, when she heard voices, male voices, speaking in rapid Korean. She paused, turning down her headphones. The gallery was supposed to be empty except for her and the security guard. The voices were coming from the private viewing room at the end of the hall, a fancy space reserved for VIP clients and special exhibitions. Elena had cleaned it dozens of times, but she'd never seen it in use this late. She should have left, should have gone back downstairs and pretended she heard nothing. But curiosity and something else, maybe loneliness, maybe just the desire to hear people talking, drew her closer. The door to the viewing room was slightly ajar. Through the crack, she could see several men in expensive suits gathered around a table, and in the center of them, wearing a stunning black dress that probably cost more than Elena's entire year of tuition, was a woman who radiated cold authority. Elena recognized her immediately. Kim Yuna. Her face had been all over the news lately, the wedding of the century, they called it. The union that would transform Seoul's underground economy. Elena had seen the photos, read the articles with the same fascination people have for celebrity gossip, but Yuna wasn't discussing wedding plans. The charges are already placed, one of the men was saying. See 4 explosives hidden in the altar framework. When he reaches for the rings, the pressure plate activates. 5-second delay to give you time to step back. Elena's blood went cold. And you're certain it will work? Yuna's voice was crisp, businesslike, like she was discussing a restaurant reservation instead of murder. Absolutely. The blast radius will take out everyone within 15 feet. Your father will be at the edge of the safe zone. My men have calculated everything. Park Si-woo dies, along with his top lieutenants. In the chaos, your father takes control of both territories. We'll frame it as an attack from the Yakuza, retaliation for the Osaka incident last year. And the evidence? We'll point exactly where we want it to point. Trust me, Miss Kim. By Saturday night, you'll be a widow before you're even a wife, and you'll control the entire Seoul underworld. Yuna smiled. It was the coldest thing Elena had ever seen. Good. My father has already prepared the consolidation documents. The moment Si-woo is dead, we move. No hesitation, no mercy. Anyone who questions the transition gets dealt with immediately. Elena backed away from the door, her heart hammering so hard she thought they might hear it. Her hands shook. Her legs felt weak. She needed to get out, needed to run, but her feet were frozen to the polished marble floor. She thought about the man in the news photos. Park Si-woo. He looked dangerous, cruel, the kind of man who probably deserved whatever he got. But then she thought about her father, about the way he'd taught her that every life mattered, that standing by while someone died made you complicit in their death. She couldn't just let this happen. Elena ran down the hallway, her cleaning cart rattling behind her. She abandoned it near the stairs and practically flew down to the ground level. The security guard looked up in surprise as she burst past him. Emergency! Family emergency! She gasped in broken Korean, not stopping to explain. She had 3 days. 3 days to figure out how to save a man she'd never met from people who would kill her without hesitation if they knew what she'd overheard. Elena spent Friday in a state of controlled panic. She couldn't go to the police, nothing she'd witnessed would hold up in court. And besides, the police were probably on someone's payroll. She couldn't contact Si-woo directly, she had no way to reach him, and his people would never let a random foreign student get close. She considered forgetting the whole thing, going about her life, letting powerful people kill each other over territory and money that meant nothing to her. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw that explosion, saw bodies torn apart, saw blood on stone floors. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. Elena didn't have an invitation to the wedding, didn't have appropriate clothes, didn't have any kind of plan beyond the desperate hope that she could somehow reach Si-woo before that 5-second countdown ended his life. She'd borrowed a cream-colored dress from her roommate, the nicest thing she owned. It was too big and already stained from when she'd spilled coffee on it last semester, but it would have to do. She couldn't afford anything else. The Cathedral of Street. Mary stood like a fortress in the center of the city. Elena approached it from 3 blocks away, her stomach churning with fear. Security was everywhere. Men in dark suits with earpieces, their eyes scanning the crowds. Metal detectors at every entrance. Police barriers keeping curious onlookers at a distance. She counted at least 30 guards that she could see. Probably twice that many she couldn't. This was insane. She was going to die here. She was going to get shot trying to save a gangster who probably wouldn't believe her anyway. But she kept walking. The main entrance was completely blocked. She circled around to the side, where a service door stood partially open. A catering truck was parked there, workers carrying in trays of food for the reception. Elena waited until they were distracted, then slipped inside. The back hallways of the church were dimly lit and smelled of old incense. She could hear organ music playing, the ceremony already in progress. She followed the sound, her heart racing faster with every step. A guard appeared around a corner. Elena ducked into a supply closet, holding her breath as his footsteps passed. She waited 30 seconds, then emerged and kept moving. She was lost. The cathedral was massive, a maze of corridors and rooms. The music grew louder, which meant she was getting closer, but she still couldn't find the main sanctuary. Then she heard it. A man's voice, amplified through speakers. "Park Si-woo, do you take Kim Yuna to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Elena ran. She didn't know where she was going, just followed the sound. She burst through a door and suddenly she was there at the back of the main sanctuary, staring down an aisle lined with the most dangerous people in Seoul. Everyone turned to look at her. 200 faces, 200 weapons ready to draw. And at the altar, his hand reaching toward a small velvet box, was Park Si-woo. Their eyes met across that impossible distance. She saw the confusion on his face, the split-second calculation of threat versus opportunity. Elena didn't have time to explain, didn't have time to convince him. She just had to make him move. She ran down that aisle like death itself was chasing her. Because it was. The explosion was everything Elena had imagined, and worse. The sound alone felt like it could tear her soul from her body. The heat blast hit her back like a physical wall, throwing her forward onto the cobblestones. Si-woo's body covered hers, his weight crushing the air from her lungs. His arms wrapped around her head in an instinctive gesture of protection. For a moment, there was only ringing silence and the smell of burning stone. Then chaos. Screams from inside the church, sirens wailing in the distance, the sharp crack of gunfire as someone panicked and started shooting. Si-woo rolled off her and pulled her to her feet with surprising gentleness. "Can you walk?" Elena nodded, though her legs felt like water. His men poured from the burning cathedral, faces blackened with soot, eyes wild with shock and rage. They saw their boss standing with a strange foreign woman, and their training took over. Guns appeared from holsters. Safeties clicked off. "She's the bomber. She let him out so her people could detonate. Kill her now." Si-woo stepped between them and Elena, his body a shield. "Stand down. All of you." "That's an order." "But, boss, I said stand down." His voice carried the kind of authority that made grown men flinch. "This woman saved my life. While you were all inside, blind and useless, she risked everything to warn me. So lower your weapons before I start questioning your loyalty." The guns slowly dropped, but the eyes remained hostile, suspicious. Si-woo turned back to the burning church. Through the smoke and flames, Elena could see the altar, or what remained of it. Bodies littered the floor, some moving, some not, and standing there in the center of it all, her white dress untouched by ash, was Kim Yuna. She met Si-woo's gaze across the destruction. For a moment, neither moved. Then Yuna turned and walked calmly toward the side exit, her bouquet of white roses still clutched in one hand. "We need to move," one of Si-woo's men said urgently. "The police will be here in minutes, and half of them are on the Kim family payroll." Si-woo looked at Elena. "You're coming with me. We need to talk, and we can't do it here." I can't." Elena's voice shook. The reality of what had just happened was crashing over her in waves. She'd witnessed a murder plot, broken into a mafia wedding, narrowly escaped an explosion, and now Seoul's most dangerous criminal was telling her she had to go with him. "You have two choices," Si-woo said, his voice gentler than she expected. "Come with me and stay alive, or stay here and die when Yuna's people come looking for the witness. What's it going to be?" Elena looked back at the burning church, at the approaching sirens, at the cold calculation in the eyes of the men surrounding them. She followed Si-woo. The safe house was in Itaewon, hidden above a 24-hour convenience store that probably served as a front for money laundering. Si-woo led her through a back entrance and up a narrow staircase to a third-floor apartment that looked nothing like she'd expected. No luxury, no ostentation, just a simple two-room space with basic furniture and heavy curtains over the windows. "Sit," he ordered, gesturing to a worn couch, "and start talking. I want to know everything. Who you are, what you were doing at my wedding, and how you knew about the bomb." Elena collapsed onto the couch, her body finally giving in to exhaustion and fear. Her dress was torn and filthy. Her feet hurt from running. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "My name is Elena Moore," she began. "I'm a student at Yonsei University. I work nights at the Hansong Gallery, cleaning floors and toilets, because that's the only job I could get. 3 days ago, I overheard your bride planning to kill you." She told him everything. The voices in the viewing room, the detailed discussion of C4 explosives and pressure plates, Yuna's cold smile as she discussed consolidating power, the frame-up involving the Yakuza. Siwoo listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. His neck tattoos shifted as he swallowed, the only sign of any emotional reaction. When she finished, he stood and walked to the window. He pulled back the curtain just enough to look down at the street below. "Han Jae-sung," he said quietly. "My oldest friend. My most trusted lieutenant. He was in charge of wedding security." "I'm sorry," Elena whispered. "Don't be." He made his choice. Siwoo let the curtain fall closed. "The explosion killed him instantly. I saw his body near the altar. He was probably the one who planted the charges, which means Yuna had him compromised for weeks, maybe months." He turned back to her, and for the first time, Elena saw something other than calculation in his eyes. She saw exhaustion, betrayal, the weight of carrying too many secrets for too many years. "Why did you save me?" he asked. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. For all you knew, I deserve to die." Elena thought about her father, about the lessons he'd taught her in their small house in Atlanta, about the principle that every life had value, even the lives of people who'd done terrible things. "Because letting someone die when you can stop it makes you a murderer too," she said simply. "And I'm not that person." Siwoo studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me. I need you to pull everything you can on Kim Yuna bank records, communication logs, everything." "Yes, I know what I'm asking. Do it anyway. And find out who else in my organization was working with her. I want names by morning." He ended the call and sat down across from Elena. "You just made yourself the most wanted woman in Seoul," he said bluntly. "Yuna's going to frame you for the bombing. By tomorrow morning, your face will be all over the news. Foreign student radicalized by anti-government groups. Lone wolf terrorist. Whatever story sells. The police will hunt you. My enemies will hunt you. And Yuna's people will absolutely kill you the moment they find you." Elena felt her stomach drop. "What do I do?" "You stay here, under my protection, until I can figure out how to fix this mess." He leaned forward, his tattooed hands clasped together. "But I need something from you first. When you overheard them planning this, did you record any of it?" Elena's eyes widened. In all the panic and fear, she'd forgotten. Her phone, the voice memo app she always kept running during her shifts in case her supervisor tried to claim she hadn't finished her work. She pulled out her cracked phone with trembling hands, opened the app, scrolled to Thursday night. There it was, 47 minutes of audio. She'd been so focused on the shock of what she was hearing that she hadn't even thought about the fact that her phone was recording everything. She pressed play. Yuna's voice came through clearly. "The charges are already placed. C4 explosives hidden in the altar framework." Siwoo's expression hardened as he listened. When the recording finished, he looked at Elena with something that might have been respect. "That," he said, "changes everything." Siwoo listened to the recording 3 more times, his expression growing darker with each replay. Elena watched him pace the small apartment, his phone pressed to his ear as he made call after call in rapid Korean. She caught maybe 1 word in 10, but the tone was unmistakable. He was mobilizing whatever forces remained loyal to him. "We need to get this recording to the right people," he finally said, turning back to her. "But it's not that simple. Half the police force takes bribes from the Kim family. Judges, prosecutors, politicians, they're all compromised. If we go public too soon, Yuna will have time to discredit it. Call it a deep fake. Claim you doctored it. So what do? We wait. We gather more evidence, and we stay alive long enough to use it." He sat down heavily, running his tattooed hands through his hair. "Can you send me that recording? I need to back it up in multiple locations." Elena's fingers shook as she airdropped the file to his phone. 47 minutes of audio that proved a woman had planned to murder her husband on their wedding day. It felt surreal, like she'd stumbled into a movie and couldn't find the exit. Siwoo's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. "It's starting." He turned the phone toward her. The news website showed her face, a photo clearly pulled from her university ID. The headline read, "Foreign student sought in cathedral bombing that killed 12. Elena felt the room spin, 12 people? 12 confirmed dead so far. More in critical condition. Siwoo scrolled through the article. They're saying you were radicalized by anti-Korean extremist groups, that you targeted the wedding because... He paused, his voice growing colder. Because you had a vendetta against successful Korean businesses. They're making you out to be a terrorist. But that's insane! I was trying to stop the bombing, not cause it. I know. But the truth doesn't matter when you're up against people with enough money to buy it. He stood and pulled the curtains shut more tightly. The police will be checking your boarding house, your university, anywhere you've been known to frequent. Your roommates will be questioned. Your professors. Anyone you've ever spoken to in this country. Elena thought of her roommate, Sarah, who'd lent her the dress. Of Professor Kim, who'd given her extra help with her Korean language assignments. Of the convenience store owner near campus who always gave her free tea on cold mornings. All of them were about to have their lives turned upside down because of her. My family, she whispered. Back home. When they see this, they won't believe it. The people who really know you never will. Siwoo's voice was surprisingly gentle. But Yuna's counting on the fact that most of Korea doesn't know you. You're foreign. Different. Easy to make into a monster. The words hit Elena like a physical blow because they were true. She'd felt it every day since arriving in Seoul, the invisible line that marked her as other. Now that otherness was being weaponized against her. The night stretched into dawn. Siwoo made Elena stay away from the windows while he worked his phone, calling in favors, gathering intelligence, trying to figure out which of his people were still loyal and which had been bought by the Kim family. The list of the dead from the explosion grew to 15. Siwoo's face remained impassive, but Elena noticed how his hands curled into fists each time another name was confirmed. Did you know them? She asked quietly. The people who died? Some of them. Yeah. He set his phone down and looked at her properly for the first time in hours. Choi Min-jun had a daughter starting university this fall. Lee Sung-ho was about to retire, move to the countryside with his wife. Park Dae-jung saved my life twice. He paused. They weren't good men. None of us are. But they were mine, and Yuna killed them to get to me. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. You didn't plant that bomb. Siwoo moved to the small kitchen area and started making coffee. You want some? It's going to be instant. Nothing fancy. Sure, thanks. They sat in awkward silence while water boiled. Elena realized this was the longest she'd spent alone with any Korean person since arriving in the country. Usually conversations were transactional, ordering food, asking for directions, responding to a professor's question. This felt different, intimate in a strange way. Can I ask you something? Siwoo said, stirring instant coffee granules into 2 chipped mugs. Why did you come to Korea? Was it just the scholarship? Elena wrapped her hands around the warm mug he handed her. Partly, but also because I wanted to go somewhere completely different. Somewhere that would challenge me, make me grow. She laughed bitterly. Be careful what you wish for, right? Has it been terrible? Being here? Sometimes, not always. She thought about it carefully. People stare. A lot. Some are just curious, but some are hostile. I've had people refuse to sit next to me on the subway. Shop owners who follow me around like I'm going to steal something. Old women who touch my hair without asking. But I've also met kind people. People who went out of their way to help me when I was lost. Who smiled at me like they were genuinely happy I was here. The problem is you never know which type you're going to encounter. Exactly. Elena looked at him. What about you? What's it like being you? Siwoo raised an eyebrow. Meaning, you said I'm an outsider in this country. But you're an outsider in society. Right? That's what you do. You exist in the spaces between legal and illegal. Visible and invisible. You can't exactly tell people at parties what you do for a living. He smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous. You're perceptive. Most people don't think about it that way. He sipped his coffee. My father was an enforcer. Low level. The kind of guy who got used and thrown away. When he died, nobody cared. Not the syndicate he worked for. Not the police. Not even our neighbors. We were invisible. So you made yourself visible. I made myself necessary. There's a difference. He set down his mug. But you're right. I don't get to have a normal life. Can't make friends outside the organization because how do you explain the bodyguards and the mysterious income? Can't date normally because everyone either wants something from you or is terrified of you. Can't trust anyone completely because betrayal is just part of the business. That sounds lonely. It is. He met her eyes. But it's also safe. If you don't let people close, they can't hurt you. At least that's what I always told myself. And then your oldest friend helped plant a bomb under your wedding altar. Siwoo's expression hardened again. Yeah, so much for that theory. Elena's phone buzzed. She'd turned off most notifications, but her sister's name flashed across the screen. Multiple missed calls, dozens of messages. She couldn't read them, couldn't face them yet. You should call her, Siwoo said quietly. Let her know you're alive and safe. She's probably terrified. And say what? Hi, I'm not actually a terrorist. I'm just hiding in a safe house with a mafia boss because I accidentally witnessed a murder plot? Something like that. Leave out the safe house location. He stood. I'll give you privacy. I need to make more calls anyway. He disappeared into the bedroom and closed the door. Elena stared at her phone for a long moment, then called her sister. Maya answered on the first ring. Oh my god. Elena, where are you? Are you okay? Mom and Dad are losing their minds. The news is saying you bombed a church. I told them it was crazy, that you would never. Maya, breathe. I'm okay. I'm safe. And I didn't do it. I know you didn't. But the news, they're showing your face everywhere, saying you're a terrorist. I was trying to stop the bombing, not cause it. I tried to warn someone, and I got framed for it. Elena's voice cracked. Maya, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make people believe me. We believe you. That's what matters. Her sister's voice was fierce. Mom wants to fly there right now. Dad's trying to contact the embassy. We're going to get you home, okay? We're going to get you out of there. I can't leave. Not yet. If I run, it looks like guilt. And there are people here who will die if I don't help clear this up. Elena, you can't save everyone. You have to save yourself first. I know. But I have to try. She wiped her eyes. Tell Mom and Dad I love them. Tell them I'm sorry for scaring them. And tell them I'm going to make this right. When she hung up, Siwoo was leaning in the bedroom doorway. Good kid, your sister. The best. Elena set her phone down. What happens now? Now we prove Yuna did this. And we do it in a way that she can't wiggle out of. He pulled out his laptop. I've got people pulling security footage from the gallery. If we can place Yuna there that night, match it with the timestamp on your recording, we can start building a case. But we need more than just audio. We need witnesses willing to testify. The men in that room with her, will any of them talk? Not voluntarily. These are career criminals. Snitching means death. He typed something rapidly. But there might be another way. Yuna had to move money to pay for this. Bribes, explosives, purchases, payoffs. Money leaves trails. If I can find those trails. They worked through the morning. Siwoo made calls in Korean, while Elena tried to remember every detail of what she'd seen that night at the gallery. The layout of the room. The number of men. Anything that might help identify the conspirators. Around noon, Siwoo's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then his face went pale. When? He listened again. I understand. Thank you for the warning. He ended the call and looked at Elena. Kim Tae-jin just held a press conference. Yuna's father. He's offering a 500 million won reward for information leading to your capture. Dead or alive. Elena's mouth went dry. How much is that in? About 400,000 US dollars. Siwoo stood and started pulling weapons from hidden compartments in the apartment. Guns, knives, body armor. Every bounty hunter, low-level gangster, and desperate civilian in Seoul is now looking for you. We need to move to a more secure location. Where? I own a small hotel in Hongdae. It's technically a front for money laundering, but the manager is loyal, and the building has good security. We'll be safer there than in this apartment. He handed her a baseball cap and oversized hoodie. Put these on, keep your head down, and stay close to me. The hotel was called the Orchid, a narrow building squeezed between a noraebang and a fried chicken restaurant. The manager, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, took one look at Elena and ushered them up to the top floor without a word. Room 701, she said, handing Siwoo a key. No cameras on this floor. I'll have food sent up. You need anything else, you call me directly. The room was small but clean, with blackout curtains and a reinforced door. Siwoo did a sweep of the space, checking for bugs or cameras, then finally relaxed slightly. We should be good here for a few days at least. Jinhee knows how to keep her mouth shut. Jinhee? The manager. She's been with me for 15 years. Saved her son from a gambling debt that would have gotten him killed. She won't betray us. Elena sat on the bed, exhaustion finally catching up with her. She hadn't slept in over 30 hours. Her body ached. Her mind felt foggy. You should rest, Siwoo said. I'll keep watch. What about you? I've gone longer without sleep. I'll be fine. But Elena could see the exhaustion in his eyes, too. The weight of everything pressing down on him. When's the last time you slept? Friday night. Maybe. He shrugged. Doesn't matter. It does matter. You can't protect anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. She stood. We'll take shifts. You sleep first. I'll wake you if anything happens. Siwoo looked like he wanted to argue, but his body betrayed him with a massive yawn. 2 hours. Wake me in 2 hours. He lay down on the bed, fully clothed, gun within reach, and was asleep in seconds. Elena watched him for a moment. In sleep, he looked different. The hard edges softened. The permanent tension in his jaw relaxed. She could see traces of the boy he must have been before life turned him into this a weapon wrapped in expensive suits. She wondered what it would be like to carry that much violence inside you. To know you'd killed people, hurt people, built an empire on fear and blood. Did it haunt him? Or had he learned to compartmentalize it, tuck it away in some dark corner of his mind? Her phone buzzed. Another news alert. The death toll was now at 17. 3 more people had died from their injuries. The government was calling it the worst terrorist attack in Seoul in 2 decades. Elena felt sick. Those people had died because she'd failed. Because she'd been too slow, too scared, too powerless to stop what was coming. No, that wasn't right. Those people had died because Kim Yuna was a monster. Because she valued power more than human life. Because the world they lived in rewarded cruelty and punished compassion. Elena pulled out her laptop and started writing everything down. Every detail of what she'd seen and heard. Every word of that recording. Every piece of evidence they had. If something happened to her. If Yuna's people found her and killed her. At least there would be a record. At least someone would know the truth. She was so focused on typing that she almost didn't hear the soft knock at the door. She froze. Looked at Siwoo. He was still asleep. Another knock. Then Jinhee's voice, low and urgent. It's me. I have food. Elena crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Jinhee stood there alone, holding a tray. Elena opened the door a crack. Thank you. Jinhee pushed inside and closed the door quickly behind her. We have a problem. There are police in the lobby. They're showing your picture, asking if anyone's seen you. I told them no, but they're going to search the building room by room. Siwoo was instantly awake, gun in hand. How many? 4 that I saw, maybe more outside. Exits, fire escape on the north side. But it's visible from the street. Jinhee set down the tray. There's another way. The building next door has a connected basement. Used to be a single structure before they split it. The passage is narrow and it's not exactly legal, but it works. Siwoo was already gathering their things. Show us. They followed Jinhee down a back stairwell to the basement. She moved a stack of boxes to reveal a hole in the wall barely 3 feet high. Go through there. It comes out in the basement of the restaurant next door. There's an exit to the alley on the far side. Thank you, Siwoo said. Jinhee looked at Elena. I don't know what you did or didn't do, but I know him. She nodded at Siwoo. He's not stupid. If he's protecting you, there's a reason. So whatever they're saying about you on the news, I don't believe it. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. They crawled through the passage, emerging in a dusty basement that smelled of old cooking oil and kimchi. They could hear footsteps above them. The restaurant was open, customers eating lunch. Siwoo found the exit and cracked it open, checking the alley. Clear. Move fast. They emerged into bright daylight. Elena pulled her cap lower and followed Siwoo through a maze of back alleys. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew these streets intimately, who'd run these routes before. They ended up in a parking garage. Siwoo approached a black SUV and used a key to unlock it. Get in. Where are we going? Somewhere Yuna won't think to look. He started the engine. Somewhere I swore I'd never go back to. The neighborhood was called Guryong Village, one of Seoul's last remaining slums. Makeshift houses clung to the hillside, built from corrugated metal and scrap wood. Narrow alleys wound between them like veins. Siwoo parked the SUV at the bottom of the hill and led Elena up on foot. I grew up here, he said quietly. After my father died, this was all my mother could afford. 3 families sharing 1 water pump. No heat in winter. Rats everywhere. He pointed to a small structure halfway up the hill. That was ours. She died there when I was 17. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am. He led her to a different house, slightly larger, with actual walls instead of tarps. He knocked on the door in a specific pattern. An old woman answered. Her face was weathered, her hair completely white, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at Siwoo for a long moment, then smiled. Little Park Siwoo. I wondered when you'd come back. Grandmother Song, I need a favor. Of course you do. Nobody comes here unless they need something. But her voice was kind. She looked at Elena with open curiosity. Who's your friend? Someone who saved my life. The police are looking for her. Well then. Come in before someone sees you. The inside of the house was cramped but immaculately clean. Grandmother Song gestured for them to sit while she made tea. Siwoo looked uncomfortable. Too large for the small space, like a wolf trying to fit inside a rabbit hole. You did well for yourself, Grandmother Song said, pouring tea. I see your name in the papers sometimes. Big businessman now. Very respectable. I'm a gangster, Grandmother. Everyone knows it. Respectable gangster, then. She handed Elena a cup. What's your name, child? Elena Moore. American? Yes, ma'am. Grandmother Song studied her. You're the one from the news. The terrorist. Elena's heart sank. I'm not. Peace, child. I don't believe everything I see on TV. If Siwoo says you're innocent, that's good enough for me. She sipped her tea. How long do you need to stay? A few days at most, Siwoo said. Just until I can arrange something more permanent. You can stay as long as you need. But tell me something, Siwoo. Why come here? You have money, properties. Why bring her to this place? Because nobody would think to look here. And because... He paused. Because you're the only person I know who I can trust completely. Who doesn't want anything from me except what's right? Grandmother Song smiled. Took you 20 years to figure that out. She set them up in a small back room with a sleeping mat and blankets. It wasn't comfortable, but it was safe. Hidden. A place where the weight of Seoul's expectations couldn't reach them. That night, lying on the floor with only a thin mat between them and the cold ground, Elena whispered into the darkness. Thank you. For trusting me. For protecting me. You didn't have to do any of this. Yeah, I did. Siwoo's voice came from somewhere to her left. You saved my life. That means something. More than money, more than power. You looked at me a stranger, a criminal, and decided I was worth saving. Nobody's done that for me since I was a kid. So yeah, I had to. What happens next? Next, we finish this. We prove Yuna did it. We clear your name. And we make sure she pays for every person she killed. And then... Siwoo was quiet for a long moment. And then I figure out who I am without all this. Without the violence and the fear. Maybe I become someone my mother would have been proud of. Elena felt tears slide down her temples. I think she would have been proud of you anyway. You survived. You built something from nothing. That takes strength. It takes cruelty. That's not the same thing. Maybe. But you're also protecting me, keeping your word to a stranger. That's not cruel. That's human. They lay in comfortable silence after that. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. A child laughed. The sounds of people living their lives, simple and complicated and beautiful in their ordinariness. Elena drifted toward sleep, thinking that maybe, just maybe, they might actually survive this. Siwoo spent the next 3 days building his case. He couldn't leave Guryong village without risking recognition. So he worked through intermediaries, people who owed him favors, who remembered when he'd helped them before he became powerful. Elena watched him transform from a mafia boss into something else, something more careful and deliberate, strategic in a different way. The evidence mounted slowly. Security footage from the gallery showing Yuna entering through a side door at 11:47 p.m. on Thursday, exactly matching the timestamp on Elena's recording. Her driver waiting outside for over an hour, unusual for someone who supposedly wasn't there. Bank records showing Yuna had withdrawn 500 million won in cash over the previous month. No receipts, no paper trail, just missing money. A witness, one of the gallery security guards, willing to testify that he'd been paid to turn off cameras in certain corridors during specific times. He didn't know why until after the bombing. Now he was terrified and willing to talk. Cell phone records placing 2 of the men from Elena's recording near the cathedral 3 days before the wedding. A cleaning staff member who'd seen them access the altar area with toolboxes. She'd thought they were repair workers. Piece by piece, The truth took shape. But Yuna wasn't idle either. The news coverage became more aggressive. Elena's face was everywhere, plastered on convenience store windows, scrolling across subway station displays, printed in newspapers. The reward climbed to 1 billion won. People were posting theories on social media. Some defended her, but most believed the official story. Foreign students shouldn't be allowed in Korea if they're going to do things like this. This is what happens when we let everyone in. Deport all of them. Can't trust foreigners. Elena read the comments late at night when she couldn't sleep, each one a knife to her chest. She'd come here with such hope, such faith in human connection. Now half the country wanted her dead. Stop reading that garbage, Siwoo said, taking her phone away one night. Those people don't matter. They're scared and looking for someone to blame. That's human nature. It doesn't make them right. But what if they win? What if the truth doesn't matter? The truth always matters. Sometimes it just takes longer to surface. He handed her phone back. We're almost ready. One more piece and we move. The final piece came from an unexpected source, Han Jae-sung's widow. She contacted Siwoo through an encrypted message. She had her husband's laptop. He'd kept records, details of meetings with Yuna, payments received, even a video file insurance. He'd called it showing him and 2 other men installing the explosives in the cathedral altar. He was going to betray her, the widow wrote. He was going to take the money and disappear. He told me the night before the wedding. He seemed scared. I think he knew it might go wrong. So Jae-sung had been planning to double-cross both Siwoo and Yuna had killed him anyway, just to be sure. Siwoo stared at his friend's face frozen on the laptop screen, a screwdriver in hand, wiring explosives that would kill him 12 hours later. His expression was unreadable. Did you love him? Elena asked quietly. As a friend? I thought I did. But love and business, they don't mix well in my world. He closed the laptop. This is everything we need. Tomorrow, we end this. The plan was simple in theory, dangerous in execution. Siwoo had contacts in the prosecutor's office, people who hadn't been bought by the Kim family. He would deliver all the evidence at once. The recording, the security footage, the bank records, the witness statements, and the video of the bomb installation. All of it backed up in multiple locations, sent to multiple journalists simultaneously. If Yuna wanted to bury it, she'd have to work faster than physics allowed. But first, Siwoo needed to draw her out, make her think she'd won. He called a meeting at Neutral Territory, a hotel conference room in Gangnam, the kind of place where corporate mergers got negotiated over tea and barely concealed hostility. Yuna's people accepted immediately. They thought he was coming to surrender, to negotiate terms of his exile from Seoul in exchange for dropping the hunt for Elena. This is insane, Elena said as Siwoo dressed in one of his expensive suits, the armor he wore when going to war. She tried to kill you. She's not going to just sit down and talk. She will if she thinks she's won. Sociopaths like Yuna, they can't resist the chance to gloat. He adjusted his tie. Besides, I'm not going alone. I can't go with you. My face is all over the news. You're not coming to the meeting, but you'll be watching. He handed her a small device, an earpiece. I'll be wearing a camera. You'll see and hear everything. If something goes wrong, you call the prosecutor directly. This number. He handed her a card. You give her everything. Promise me. Siwoo, promise me, Elena. If I don't walk out of that room, you make sure Yuna goes down anyway. Elena took the card with shaking hands. I promise. He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed him. Good. Now wish me luck. Luck. Elena watched the feed from a van parked 2 blocks away. Siwoo's tech person, a young woman named Minji, who looked like she'd be more comfortable at a gaming tournament than working for the mob, had set up multiple screens showing different angles. Siwoo entered the conference room at exactly 3 p.m. Yuna was already there, flanked by 4 bodyguards. She looked immaculate in a black dress, her hair pulled back severely. She smiled when Siwoo entered. You look well for a man who almost died at his own wedding. I'm resilient. Siwoo sat across from her. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Of course. We have much to discuss. Yuna folded her hands on the table. I assume you're here to negotiate terms? In a way. I wanted to give you a chance to confess. Yuna's smile didn't waver. Confess to what? To planning my murder. To killing 17 people, including my lieutenant. To framing an innocent student for your crime. Those are serious accusations. Do you have any proof? Siwoo pulled out a tablet and set it on the table. He pressed play. Elena's recording filled the room. Yuna's voice, clear and damning, discussing C4 explosives and pressure plates and consolidating power. The smile finally slipped from Yuna's face. This is fabricated, deep fake technology. The security footage from the gallery that night shows you arriving at 11:47 p.m., your driver waiting for 73 minutes. The timestamp matches the recording exactly. Siwoo swiped to the next file. Your bank records show 500 million won withdrawn in cash over the previous month. The security guard you bribed is willing to testify. And best of all, he played the video of Jae-sung installing the bomb. Your conspirator kept insurance. Yuna stared at the screen. For the first time, Elena saw something like fear in her eyes. What do you want? Yuna asked quietly. I want you to confess, publicly. Clear Elena's name. Turn yourself in. And if I refuse, then this all goes public anyway. To prosecutors, journalists, social media, you'll be arrested either way. But if you confess now, show remorse, you might get life in prison instead of execution. Yuna laughed. It was a cold, brittle sound. You think I'm afraid of prison? My father will have me out in months. Your father disowned you 2 hours ago. Siwoo pulled out his phone and showed her a news article. Kim Tae-jin's statement was clear. His daughter had acted alone, without his knowledge or approval. He condemned her actions and pledged full cooperation with authorities. He'd thrown her to the wolves to save himself. Yuna's composure finally cracked. That bastard. After everything I did for him, you did it for yourself. Siwoo interrupted. Don't pretend this was about family loyalty. You wanted power. You were willing to kill hundreds of people to get it, and now you're going to pay for that. Yuna stood abruptly. Her bodyguards reached for their weapons, but Siwoo didn't move. If you shoot me, you prove everything. The prosecutor already has all this evidence. Killing me changes nothing except adding more bodies to your count. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Yuna sat back down slowly. What happens to the foreign girl? She asked. Elena. She goes free. Gets her life back. You confess that you framed her. And you? I retire. Leave the life. Go legitimate. Siwoo leaned forward. I'm done, Yuna. You wanted to kill me? Congratulations. You killed the version of me that would have ruled Seoul forever. Now I get to figure out who I am without all this. Yuna studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled again. You know what? I believe you. And that's the saddest part of this whole thing. You were the most powerful man in Seoul, and you're throwing it all away for what? A sense of morality? A girl you barely know? For the chance to be someone my mother would recognize. Yuna stood. Fine. I'll confess. Not because you're threatening me, but because honestly, she looked around the sterile conference room. I'm tired too. Tired of pretending. Tired of playing the perfect daughter. At least in prison, I won't have to smile anymore. She walked to the door, her bodyguards following. Before she left, she looked back at Siwoo one last time. For what it's worth, you would have been a terrible husband anyway. Too soft. Then she was gone. The confession came that evening. Yuna surrendered to police and gave a full statement, confirming everything. The news exploded. Elena's face disappeared from the wanted posters, replaced by Yuna's. The narrative flipped overnight. Foreign student hero. Woman risked life to stop bombing. Brave American saved dozens by warning Mafia Boss. Elena Moore. The most courageous woman in Seoul. Elena watched the news coverage from Grandmother Song's house, feeling numb. Siwoo sat beside her, equally quiet. It's over, she finally said. Almost. He pulled out his phone. There's one more thing. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in the courtyard of Yonsei University, surrounded by cameras and reporters. Beside her stood Siwoo, looking uncomfortable in the attention but determined. We're announcing the creation of the Elena Moore Foundation, he told the gathered press. Dedicated to supporting foreign students studying in Korea. Full scholarships, housing assistance, cultural integration programs, and legal aid. We'll start with 50 students this year and expand from there. Why this cause? A reporter asked. Siwoo looked at Elena. She stepped forward. Because I almost died trying to be heard in a country where I was invisible, Elena said simply. Because every foreign student here deserves to feel safe, supported, and valued. Because diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. And because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is help someone who looks nothing like you. The questions came rapid fire after that. How much funding? Where would the money come from? Would Siwoo's criminal past affect the Foundation's credibility? My past is my past, Siwoo answered calmly. I'm done with that life. I've divested from all illegal operations, and I'm cooperating fully with authorities to dismantle what remains of my former organization. This foundation is my future, helping students like Elena, students who have courage and conviction and deserve better than what this city gave her. That's what matters now. Later, after the press conference, Elena and Siwoo stood alone on campus, watching students hurry between classes. What will you do now? Elena asked. Really? I have a degree in business I never used. Maybe I'll finish my MBA. Maybe I'll learn how to be a normal person. He smiled. What about you? Continue my studies. Work with the foundation. Stay in Korea. She looked at him. If that's okay. It's your choice. Always was. He paused. But for what it's worth, I'm glad you're staying. Me too. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the world move around them. Two outsiders who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who'd survived when survival seemed impossible, who'd chosen compassion over cruelty and truth over convenience. Hey, Elena. Yeah? Thank you. For pulling me out of that church, for giving me a reason to be someone better. Elena smiled. Thank you for protecting me, for believing me, for proving that people can change. Seoul stretched out around them, huge and complicated and full of possibility. Somewhere in the city, Kim Yuna sat in a cell, finally free from the burden of pretending. Somewhere, Siwoo's former lieutenants were adjusting to new leadership or getting out of the life entirely. Somewhere, Elena's family was booking plane tickets to come visit and see that she was truly okay. But here, in this moment, there was just two people who'd saved each other, and the quiet promise that tomorrow could be different than yesterday. And that was enough.